let's see whether I'm streaming now. I could use some streaming. There we are. Good. All right, I'm going to go ahead and pop on over to Twitter and tell everybody. I'm streaming some indie dev today. Gonna do some haircuts. Things are going well. Except I'm a little ill. Paste. Okay, well, that is that. We are all set up and ready to rock. So there shouldn't be any flickering today. I know what causes the flicker, I just didn't realize that I was doing it last time. Except I'm lying. There is still flickering. That's... I thought I knew what was causing the flickering. Yeah, it doesn't look like it's as bad. Well, hopefully there won't be any flickering. Alright. I'm never sure what Twitch means when it says things because, wow, I am having really bad flicker. It always does some weird stuff down in the corner with icons that I don't understand. But what really bothers me is that I'm currently running at a flat 30, which should work. It shouldn't flicker when I'm at flat 30, because it was associated with the 29.97 flicker frame rate. Sorry, I am actually pretty ill today, so if I don't make much sense, it's because I have a fair amount of NyQuil in me. Won't that be fun? So anyhow, we've got a bunch of different haircuts already in the game, or already in our prototype here, but these are all just test haircuts. I think that only 2 of them are likely to make it through into the final cut, and even then I might redo them depending on how things go. But you can see that we're already starting to develop a nice sense of personality and difference between these characters, using a couple of basic techniques just repeated in fun ways and along fun axes. So we have the skin tone, the facial morphs, the expression, the haircut, and the camera angle, and the background color. I'm going to make the color of the suit sort of thing down here. That's going to relate to their role within the ship crew. So, you know, that can wait for a little while. I've also gone ahead and created some better mid-tone skin colors. They're not great, but they're much better than they were before. So we should have a better set of crews. But what we don't have is any decent haircuts. So let's go ahead and create some. To do that, we're going to need to open up the haircut. Actually, I think it's already open. Yeah, this is it. The haircut Blender file. You can see it's got lots and lots of random crap in it. And that's fine. There's no really too much interest in cleaning it up at the moment. But what we do want to do right now is just hide all of these haircuts that we're not going to need because they're just going to be in our way. And we're going to go and start a new haircut. We're going to go and make just a short men's cut, traditional men's cut, because those are easy and we don't have one yet. So that looks decent. Let's go ahead and clone a little bit more. We can just grab here and here. Yeah, that'll do. Did I get 3x3? Yeah, I did. That's fine. Just finish off the block. And then we'll duplicate. There it is. Punch it out like so. Now we've got our own separate little skull cap. We're going to want to change the material just so that we can tell the difference between it and everything else. So we'll change it to hair test straight. It doesn't really matter what we change it to because we're not going to be looking at it in material view too much at the moment. And we're going to want to break any sort of armature or shape keys that already exist. Just delete them all. Come on, get rid of them. Get rid of all the shape keys. There we are. That way we can do a lot of work with this. Now, normally what I would consider doing is cutting it in half and doing mirroring, but this is a lopsided haircut, so I'm not going to bother. Not unless I come up with a good reason to do so. So the standard men's cut probably doesn't actually need this loop here. Yeah, let's go ahead and get rid of it. And instead, that didn't work. And instead what we're going to do is we're going to give it a little bit of body and use this loop as the base loop. It's going to end up being a little off-center. Oh, I've got X-axis manipulation turned on, don't I? Yeah, X-mirror. Yeah, so we're going to want to do something like that. Let's go ahead and just grab some faces in the middle here and pull them upwards to give us a little bit of some body. And then we're going to scale up on the y-axis, if I can figure out how to get my mouse to work today. There we go. And that's the sort of shape that we're going to go for. Now let's turn off the material. Just so we can see it a little bit better. And you can see that we've got some, we did things pretty roughly there. So let's try it again, this time with proportional editing turned on. And you can see that it drags a lot of stuff along with it. And that's not too bad, but we're going to have to be careful about it. If we let it get out of hand, it won't end up being very good for us. There we are. Turn it back off. This part here, hello? There we are. This needs to be part of our forehead. It needs to descend all the way to our forehead. So we're just going to select a bunch of points along the edge and bring it back down. It would have made more sense not to cause it to be wrong in the first place, I suppose. But you can't get everything. Okay, now we're going to unselect these guys. Or not. I'll just... There. And then we'll just drag these back and down. There we go. Perfect. So we still don't have a good set here. We'll just turn on our proportional editing and pull these temples in a little bit. There we are. Perfect. So now we have a generic shape. But what we're trying to actually have in the end is a standard men's parted on one side cut. Now there's a lot of different ways to do this, and I'm not an expert, but I think what I'm going to do is I'm just going to start to shape the front edge to be asymmetric, because that's sort of what I want out of it. Yeah, something like that. And one of the other things I have the option of doing is making the fringe here, the top part of the hair, actually be a different mesh set, just so that I can get some good overhang. That would be really handy for UV mapping purposes, because I could put a UV crease underneath and no one would notice. But in this case, I'd like the hair to be fairly short, so I don't think it's going to be long enough to cause that kind of overhang. So we're not going to do it. Let's just bring this side down a little bit. Now this side doesn't have nearly as much body as the other side should. So something like that ought to do. And it's okay if it goes down to within the skull. You don't want to, it's a little wasteful to do that, so you don't want to overdo it, but no one's going to complain. And that's more or less correct. We've got a lot of extra stuff here in the back. Let's just get rid of some of it. We're not going to be using too many transparent elements in this, so it's good to try and keep it a little bit woven a little bit tighter than usual. We're going to just go ahead and clip a fair amount of this over the ear stuff, because nobody's hair actually does that. So we'll just grab. Oh, Eva Luigi stopped by, so I guess I am streaming. That's pretty nice. I am always a fan of not streaming. Come on. In case Eva Luigi wasn't here from the very beginning, I am sick today, so pardon me if I make less sense than usual. There we are, something like that. And then we can just smooth these verts out a little bit to just soften the feel. Like, there we are. Now these verts back here, we have a couple of options as to what we want to do with them. They're not necessarily bad verts. These faces could be used in some nice blend shapes to get us some curl that comes forward towards the jawline if we wanted our characters to be to have a longer version of this haircut. So I think I'm going to leave them, but what we're going to do is we're going to end up pulling them back and down later on. We're going to leave them like this for now, though. However, this whole region is much too tightly bound to the skull, so we're going to have to give it a little bit of body, or else we risk falling inside of the skull, and that's really not something that you want to do. So there we are. That should be fine. That's all you really need. I just grab this guy and the similar face on the other side, and expand it just a touch. And that'll give us enough size over the skull that it won't appear to just be a skull cap. So, what do we do next? Well, we could clean this edge up a little bit, but I think it's time for us to start thinking about basic UV mapping. So let's go ahead and unwrap it. Now, if we look over here, this is how it looks. And the problem with these sideburns is that they do take up a lot of space on the UV map. We don't need this much free space. We have a couple of things that we're going to need to add in, some basic just hair elements, but we don't need anywhere near this much space. So what we're going to do is we're going to take these elements here, and we're going to just cut them out. I can't... Well, we'll punch them out like this then, and then we'll put them back in. And that way, these are going to be separate elements. Now, the reason I made them separate rather than just creasing here is because we're actually going to just extend them. We don't want them to butt up. There's going to be a crease here, and it's going to be pretty obvious. So it's better by far for us to end up... let's go ahead and hide these guys just so I can see what I'm doing. It's better by far for them to undercut the actual hair. And that's what we're going to do right now. Oops, I still got... There we are. Now we're going to unhide, and we're going to just make sure that the fringe here actually completely conceals them. Well, this one might be better if we bring it down under. And this is like a super stupid trick, but it's one that everybody uses, so it's a fine. You create your layers where you can. Now, X-mirrored editing would have made that a little bit easier, but not enough that I felt the need to actually turn it on. So you can see that when we zoom out, we still get some crackle here. And we may need to actually edit that mesh a little bit more. But when we unwrap, you can see that now our primary hair piece takes up quite a bit more of the UV space, and the little bits down here we can reserve for those sideburns. We still have a couple of small areas that we can fill with flakes of hair for creating profile breaks, which we'll talk about later. Jojo Jet says you should use the selection brush C key. Oh, yeah. And Evil Luigi stopped in to say hi and then leaves as usual. Jojo Jet says, I really wish Make Human's model was symmetrical. Mirror editing would be a lifesaver. That's one of my problems with Make Human's clothes, but Make Human's bodies should be symmetrical. I'm not sure how you're making it so they're not symmetrical. That's unusual. So anyway, we're going to export this to, yeah, right here's fine. And then we're going to open it up in our image editor. it's under default assets, so it'd be here. There it is. And what we can do now is just Jojo says, look around the midriff. It's a bit uneven. It is. The midriff? Oh, you mean the belly. I'm sorry, we're talking about the mesh still? I've never noticed that, and I've done a lot of MakeHuman editing, including mirrored editing. Maybe I always just adjusted it without even thinking about it. Or it could be that I'm using a different version of the MakeHuman mesh than you are. Either way, it's always annoying when they're not perfectly mirrored. There's no reason for it, except in very, very specific outfits that are asymmetrical outfits. Anyway, this is the image that we're going to use, so we'll go ahead and save it to our textures as our hair short men's. And I mean, anyone can have this haircut, but it's traditionally just a standard workman's cut, so you know, desk jockey cut. So we're just going to block out some space here to see, to see roughly how it feels. And we're also going to want to pick a seam and make sure that the seam feels how we want it to feel. So we're going to just pick a darker color here and crease it through the seam where we think the seam might be. And this will give us just a little bit of definition. We'll go back over here, select a material. It's hair test straight. Let's create a new one, which we will call hair men's. We don't really care. And then we're going to go over into the textures, and we're going to create a new texture, and it's going to be our hair men's. There it is. And now when we turn on material, we should be able to see our little blocked out region. See that? And that'll let us get a pretty good idea for how we want our hair to actually end up. Right now we've got a problem with the sunlight being bad, so let's just go ahead and fix up the sunlight a little bit. There we are. That ought to give us a little bit better sunlight. So we can see that what we've got is the actual part doesn't work quite right. So we're going to just shave that part until we know where it's supposed to be, because the part is definitely going to be driving all of our texturing, and it's going to end. The part doesn't go all the way down the back of your head. So let's see whether or not this feels right. No, that's not the right place. We're going to have to reload it from the file here. So that's much, much too far down. See how far down that is? So we're going to have to really, really reduce that. Something like this. That's better. All right. Yeah, I agree, Jojo Jet. Blender's default lighting is pretty bad, and you have to constantly drag suns around or whatever it is that you want to drag around. So now that we have a basic layout for our hair, we can just start to fill in the actual hair feel. And for that, I'm going to pull out my my board. So pick up my pen and do this. You can't do this with a mouse. At least I can't do it with a mouse. If you can, that's pretty cool. But we're going to select a nice hair brush. I've got several. And we're just going to start to brush in some hair. I guess we should start with a darker color, like this. And we want to keep the grain in mind when we're doing this. It all flows out from this center point. Jojo just says spotlights are usually better. Maybe, but the sunlight is just what I always default to. Probably because in Unity, spotlights are not very useful for that sort of thing. So let's go ahead and brighten up our hair here just to get a good feel for it. By default, Blender exports in 1024 by 1024, which is the size I've been using, so that would work in our favor. And much later on, we'll need to do a lot more work on this, but right now I'm just trying to get the blocking correct so that we can see if it looks right. And it should look right. I don't see any reason why it shouldn't. We're hiding the really opaque element that we created. Let's save it. Oh, I painted on the... I forgot to break it into 2 layers. So we're going to have to do that part again. That's fine. That's not too bad. We'll just go ahead and do it again. So the only piece of indication we need right at the beginning is this crease here, which we'll just mark. And then we're going to increase this and then just delete the middle. We're going to want the edges because I need to be able to see where our UV map is actually set up. So my official recommendation is remember to use layers and don't screw up like me. But you got to cut me some slack. I am pretty sick. Do you know if Blender's texture paint has an option for hair? You know, I actually have no idea because I can't imagine trying to paint this in Blender. If we were to go into texture paint mode, there isn't one by default, but you should be able to set one up. It's not hideously hard. In fact, I didn't even realize that this was so useful. Is this pressure sensitive? It is. Can I set up my own texture if I go and change our texture? Here it is. So you've got this texture and texture mask situation. This allows us to create our own brushes. And you could very easily do all of this in Blender if you were so inclined. I don't think I will. Maybe I'll experiment with that later. Oh, I completely forgot. We're not doing it like I thought we were. We're supposed to come up like this. Okay, so if I wanted to do a texture in Blender, I'm going to need to have a hair texture ready. So we're going to create a new file. 128 by 128 is probably fine. And we're just going to create a quick mask texture. I don't know what Blender expects from me, so this could go horribly awry, but we'll just you know. Oh, that didn't work. Oh, that's not what I wanted to do either. There we are. Boom. Boom. Close enough. And then if I save this, I can save it as stripes. And in theory, over here in Blender, I should be able to set up this texture as a how do I choose it? I have to actually set it up over here. All right, so this is texture 005. Let's call it stripes. No, this is the short mens, so short mens. We're going to want a new texture, which we'll call stripes. And then this one, we will open up the stripes. Good, good. And of course, we don't actually want the stripes, so we're going to switch it back to the young men's. There it is, short men's. And then over here, we're going to choose stripes. There it is. And let's see what happens. Oh, look at that. So you can choose a texture. It looks like it's screen relative rather than stroke relative, and that would disqualify you. So if I can't tell it to use the stroke as the angle, then this is not going to work, like period. I don't see any option to change how it works. No, I don't see any option to actually... Nope. So I can't do it here in Blender because there's no way to create the brush I need. If there is a way, please let me know as soon as possible because that would be pretty neat. Now there are a variety of other means I could be using. I don't have to use this method. There are also other programs I could be using. There are a lot of cool programs out there. I'm going to just go ahead and not use them because this is all I really need. Anyway, this haircut's actually like this. So I was doing the wrong thing. So we'll just block in a bunch of thisness. Oh, well, I guess I probably should come up like this, shouldn't I? And because it's supposed to be opaque, it's fine if I overlap the edges a little bit. So I'm not too worried about it. It's not supposed to be completely opaque, of course, but it's supposed to be opaque enough. And that means I'm going to need a lot denser brush strokes in here. Doom, 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 doom. And in fact, it might be best if I blocked in a full set here. Let's use a slightly different color. There. Boom, boom, boom. Shaboom, shaboom, shabomp. Blomp, shabomp. Something like that. Yeah. I'll drop it down. And we'll get rid of this and save it. Go back into Blender and load it. There we are. So if we look at how we're trying to block it out, we can sort of get a feel for whether or not this is the right approach. It's more or less the right approach, I think. There are some things I can do like this, so let's try that. We'll pick a brighter color here. JojoJet says you could make that crease thing in Blender. I'm not sure what you mean. Sorry. You know, I'm not sure. Half of Blender's decisions are bizarre. I think it's probably screen relative because they saw it was screen relative in some other system, like in a specific method of working in Maya or something. It was screen relative, and they said, "Well, obviously it should be screen relative." But it's a really weird and awkward choice. Of course, even here, it's not not as nice as I might hope. You still gotta set the you still gotta set the brush relative strokes up. Especially, for some reason it's not the default, which is kind of odd. Oh, yeah, the part. Yeah. That would have been smart. If I had known that I could do that, I would have. But that's okay. It did take us a little bit of back and forth, but, you know, it was less than 2 minutes, so I'm not too worried about it. Let's go ahead and try this on for size. Now, normally I don't go back and forth this much, but this is the first time I've tried to create this particular haircut, so I'm not 100% sure how it's supposed to look. And you can see here I've made a mistake. They just come straight down. They need to sweep around. So that's what I'll fix next. So we'll pick a different color. A darker color is fine. And maybe darker color than that. And then we'll just do let's put this on top so you can still see it. There we are. Now this over here is a bad call, so delete these, don't need them. Because that's bleeding into another UV area, and I don't need a random hair popping into existence there. So hide it, save it, and let's see whether or not this is the hardest part of this haircut, so this should be the thing that takes the most time. Alright, so it's curling up a little bit high. That's fine. I now know more or less what we need to do, so we're going to just go ahead and work on finishing the hair a little bit. And it looks like this errant set of strokes up here is a little bit too high. So we're going to just build with that in mind. Like this. this. There we are. That's what we would like. So one of the keys to making this work is that we absolutely have to break the feel of these brush strokes. And the biggest problem, the biggest brush strokes that give us issues, are these heavy opaque brush strokes that we can still see in the back. And of course, I put them well inside of the limits of the mesh, specifically so that I can brush my way into better opacity. So I'm going to want a darker brush for that, just because I can't see very well. Yeah, like this. So as you might remember, these are going to form curls, so we're going to want to curl like this. And like this. Now be sure you don't accidentally put any weird horizontal or curly Q strokes in just because of the vagaries of the mouse. You're going to want to be careful that the hair looks reasonably natural, because there's only so much you're going to be able to do this close to the edge with individual brush strokes later. Still, this should be okay. It's not really doing a very good job of breaking up our heavy stroke in the back there, but that's okay. We'll deal with that shortly. And then here, this probably should just be, I'm trying to think of what kind of, I guess it's straight would be better here. Because that's not actually the sideburns. This is just near sideburns, I guess you could say. Something like this ought to do. Oh, it's because of this. There we are. That makes sense. Put it back in the back. So let's brighten this up. And this should finish breaking the heavy line we have there. Now we still have some opacity problems here. This isn't as opaque as it needs to be. But once we've broken up that heavy line, it'll be much easier for us to deal with them. There we are. Just take this all up like so. Obviously, this result is not suitable for our long-term needs, but that's okay because we can brush it into shape. Unlike an actual hair cutting, it's easier to add than to delete, which is cute. And let's just go ahead and sweep this over. Sweepity, sweepity, sweepity. There we are, and over here, brushity, brushity, brushity. Here, just break this up a little bit because it's a little bit too off center. Let's bring it more towards the center here. There we are. Or rather, it was correctly on center, which was off center because our center is our part is not centered. All right, so now we've got this. Let's save it. Let's hide the outline and then save it. We'll pop on over into Blender, reload it. All right, so this is the basic format of the haircut that we've got going. Now, I don't like how this comes forward on the head, and I think that's just an illusion in the UV map caused by the density of the UV elements. So I'm going to want to brush back along almost every single one of our routes. So that's going to be our next step. Also, this front has this really, really heavy horizontal area. I'd like to make that a curl. So that's what we'll do. So if I bring this back up above just so I can see it, there it is. So I can tell which of these elements is the heavy curl, and it's this guy here. So we'll just go and use a darker shade. and break this up into a curl. So this will be like so, and then this will be a curl. And then we'll put in some brightness. Jojo Jet says, this brown to blonde gradient thing looks like it would be incredibly frustrating to dye. I'm just kind of arbitrarily choosing colors at this point. To be honest, colors have never been very good. My colors, I don't do colors very well. But the basic problem here is that we're going to be building an uncolored base. So it doesn't really matter what colors I use as long as their brightness is correct. But here we've got this issue where these things are coming forward and they all need to be going back. So we're going to just sweep them back. I think straight back is probably the best option. Yeah, like this. Let's see whether this horizontal look is what we need for our element there, or not. Don't really know. All right. Save this rat's nest and take a look at it in Blender. Boom. All right. These are still going too far forward. They need to be moved even further back. That's fine. They'll basically sweep straight back. So like this. Did it look decent with the sides? No, those should probably be straight down. Okay. Got some extra floof there for a second. That's not supposed to be there, but too late now. So we'll just bring these down like so. Bring these back. Tarek B says, you seem to be doing a lot of random coloring with your people. Are you worried about performance for instance materials at all? This seems to be the biggest caveat with all of this. Yeah, I am worried, but there are some ways around it if I find that performance is dropping. Because it's very easy for me to use a vertex colored method that only requires one material. It's the exact same approach. But the problem is I don't currently have a vertex colored skin shader, so that's not the way I'm doing it right now. If performance becomes an issue, I'll switch over to a vertex shaded system. The problem with that, of course, is that each of the skinned mesh renderers would therefore begin in instance rather than a clone of all of the other ones. And that could also be an issue, but I think that skinned mesh renderers are already instanced. So now this needs to just go away. And let's save it. Jojo Jet says, how large would your crew be? I don't know if it would be that relevant. Well, the problem isn't how large your crew is going to be. The problem is whether or not you're ever seeing all of them. So if you have a large crew of several hundred people, you would only be looking at, the 10 that you care about, and the rest would be just kind of arbitrary. And you wouldn't see them unless they were needed. So I think what I've got to do now is block in to the edge or add in a better edge. If I go in here, you can see that this is pretty high. This edge here is pretty high. So what I probably should do is edit that down and either add more fringe or, well, let's go ahead and just add more fringe for now. Now, one thing about this is that editing the mesh and then re-UV editing, re-UV doing it, doing the UV dump again, is actually going to completely change our map, and we'll need to basically start over. And you'd think, oh my god, but you really need to just deal with it, because most of the difficulty we've had so far wasn't in trying to get it perfect. It was in trying to figure out how it should be at all. So when we go in and we do a new version of this, I already know how the hair part's going to fall and all that stuff, and it should be relatively straightforward. So I'm not too worried about the fact that I've got to do it again. There we are. That should do. Now let's go ahead and unwrap it again. So if we take a look over here and watch how it's going to change, it'll probably be completely different. And that's smart. Just unwrap. Yeah, see, it's pointed a different direction. It's optimized differently. And the back of the head has really huge chunks, but that's fine too. So this is what our new UV map is going to be. Export it. Hair test is fine. Go on over into this. And that's not it. This. Nope. This. One of these things. And then we'll open it up here. It's easiest to open it up by double-clicking on it. So that's why I went in here. Obviously. Hair test. Boom. And we're going to close down this hair short men and replace it with this guy. So this is hair short men's. Boom. So right now we've got this. Up here is where our part is, and down here is the back. And so we're going to create a new set of elements, and we're going to just block in a lot of the basic body. Now, since we're doing a nearly entirely opaque haircut, we don't have to be too careful about this. There we are, something like that. And we're going to want to start to brush it up. Maybe we should start at the back. I think that this angle is better for everything. Back, front, everything. Tarek B asks some good questions, though. So here is where we start to go opaque. So we're just going to print on outside the lines. That's all fine. And at the front, we are, of course, completely opaque using our curve like this. You don't need to worry about that. That's fine. All right, once again, let's save it and look at it in Blender. Make sure that it's still the same shape and everything. Oh, that's not Blender. I gotta move Blender so that I can actually find it. There we are. Refresh. All right, so now it's very dark, but it's the right shape. You can see that we've got the curls in the right place and everything down here seems to be working. Yep, so let's go ahead and just put some hair there, some proper hair. The problem with this approach at the moment is that I don't really know how to do good hair. I don't know whether or not I ever knew, but I have a hard time properly configuring the colors to look right. So that's going to be a fun set of issues. For now, our focus is on filling it in. We can always adjust the colors later. Like this. Yeah, something like that. And then down here. There we are. Blocking seems more or less right. The crease is way too big again, but that's fine. We'll go ahead and fix this. We've got some errant brushing that way. We want to brush straight back. So that's this part here. We'll just go ahead and pick a darker brush and fix it up. These are the brush strokes that we need to fix our hair. That ended up really red. Well, whatever. Right now what I'm doing is trying to fill in some of the gaps that we've created underneath this. We're going to go through and do a couple of final passes with a light brush, so it's okay if it looks a little bit weird at this stage. Or something like that, yeah. Let's just see whether or not all the strokes are going in the right direction. I think they are. Boom. Well, those are still kind of to the side, aren't they? I guess that there's an illusion up at the front, and that's the problem. It's the front that's causing us the issues right here. See this? This is where it's no good. So we're going to just go ahead and block in specifically these strokes here. And let's just see whether or not those strokes are what we need in order to make our hair go the right way. Yeah, look how big those are. You see how huge those are? The top of our head is only a tiny, tiny portion of the mesh. And that's why this part's a little bit rough, a little bit difficult. But that's what we get for not having any good mesh cuts or anything. I mean UV cuts. We could put a UV cut here if we wanted to. I mean, we might as well try it. We don't need to actually cut it. We just need to put in a mark seam just to see how it goes when we oh, that's not what I wanted to do. How it goes when we unwrap it here. Okay, so it's not appreciably better. We don't have to do that then. We'll just work with the fact that the top of our head is quite a small area. Okay, let's block in this curl. And this curl. And let's merge into the edges here, just with a little bit of curling. And let's bring these straight back like this. Turn on our opaque and put in some of these guys. There. There we are. Correct? Wrong. So one of those is backwards, probably the top one. Or the bottom one. Well, that's the ways to find out. It's the top one. Okay. So this one up here has to be the other direction. That's not too bad. We'll just make it the other direction. And then we will just boop, 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 boop. It's the right direction now, at least. So we're going to want to block in the edges a little bit better here. Maybe. We'll have to figure that out. Either way, the hair is now going the right direction, and it's just a matter of making it look like hair, which I'm going to warn you up front I'm not terribly good at. So let's get to it. Now remember that the top of our head is really, really, really a small part of this particular texture. So if we brighten up the top of our head, we're brightening up a vast amount of hair, like the majority of our hair, just so that you're aware. Whereas this hair is the actual color of my hair, that is to say, hay-colored hair, it's probably best if we brighten things up a little bit, because the average person has, or the average fictional person has good hair. There we are. Now what we're going to do is we're going to just darken the areas that we would like to appear a little bit darker. Now, normally I would try and let the lighting handle this, but I don't know if there is any lighting that can keep up with the way that hair works. At least none that can be rendered in a game environment. So we're going to kind of rely on some cheats and bake some small amount of the required lighting directly into the texture of the hair. I don't know of any way to do this without requiring that. The good news is that lighting almost always comes down from above, so you know, a little bit of baked-in lighting should be okay as long as it is with that in mind. We're also going to want to darken up our crease a little bit. something like that. I just don't feel like this looks right here, though, so we're gonna loosen it up a little bit. And we can do individual strokes, but I don't think individual strokes are going to save this if it doesn't look right. So we're going to try and get it to look right before we do some individual strokes. Now, if we flip it over, we can see that we have a very different set of strokes on the left and the right here. So we'll just try and bring those together a little bit. There we are. Over here, we have a very different setup. So just grab some of this and try and make it blend in with the rest of the hair that we've got. Something like that, maybe. Who knows? Boom, 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 and boom. All right. So Tarek B says, anisotropic lighting apparently does well for hair, but it's not exactly fast, and you probably don't need it or want it for a game at this scale. It's also not one of the default Unity available lighting systems. I think that I have a couple of lighting libraries, and I think that in theory one of them might contain it. But I think I can incorporate them pretty late in the process. At least that's what I was led to believe. So I'm not too terribly interested in trying to optimize now. As long as the haircuts aren't distractingly bad at the moment, I should be fine. What is this color? Oh, it's just orange, not as red. There we are. There we go. Well, should I bake in some highlights? I probably should bake in some highlights because I can't get them to work right in Unity proper. But I need to remember that this is like super, super tiny, this top of the head here, so we're going to need to be careful. And, well, for a rough start, I guess that's, well, the highlights look really terrible. Those highlights don't work. Goodbye, highlights. Maybe I don't understand how highlights actually illuminate the hair. Is it more like this? It's so hard working with hair on like an unwrapped plane. You can't really tell how it's going to look when it's actually put on the model. At least I can't. I'm sure that after a sufficient amount of practice, you probably get pretty used to it. And reload. Boom. Oh, that's a little bit better. Yeah, we'll go with that. So that is going to be, oh wait, that's wrong. Look at that. That's way too low. So on the short side, it's way too low. That's over here. Oh. That's better. All right. Well, it's not great, but it's certainly better than it was when we started. And that's, again, not working right, so we'll just keep trucking here, try and get it to work right. That's slightly better. Oh well, that's good enough for now. And then what we'll do is we'll actually be coloring this and doing all sorts of stuff like that. One of the things I don't like is how rough all of these hair elements are. That's partly due to the UV map being so badly stretched at the top of the head, and partly due to the fact that I'm using a fairly thick brush. If we go over here and I switch over to a thinner brush, you can see how small it is in comparison to some of the hair that we actually are using. So what we can do now, if we would like, is to try and break up this overly blunt hair by using some just individual strokes. And the goal here is just to make it look a little bit less unnatural. And we're going to have to focus our attention on the parts of the hair which have the worst UV deformation. The real solution here would be to try and make haircuts that don't have much UV deformation, but I needed this haircut regardless, so. So something like this should help some. And then what I'm going to do is switch it out for the darker shade, and then just break up some of the clumping, or some of the, create some clumping, just so that it doesn't look quite as flat. I am on the highlight layer. God damn it. Well, that's fine. And in case you missed it, I am quite sick, or at least somewhat sick, and not using my clearest brain thinking. All right. All right, so we got some, we still got a lot of issues, and it's not going to go away with just an attempt like this. Let's go ahead and leave it like this for now. It's good enough for our purposes. Jojo Jet says that you can enable ambient occlusion and set it to add, and that would work pretty well in Blender. Never really tried that. To be honest, I'm not sure where ambient occlusion is. Oh, there it is. So ambient occlusion is not going to be too useful for our hair purposes, but it certainly would be useful for other things. It also creates some really creepy stuff down here on the neck. Look at that. I am a berserker. Oh, what's that line they use in Mad Max? Witness me. All right, over into our buddy Unity. And what we're going to want to do is add our new hair to our list of hair, to our hair library. Good news, our hair library is a really easy to use prefab. So we'll just drop it into the universe here. Boom, there it is. I've already got it in the universe, so let's not. And then what we want to do is drag in our haircuts. Haircuts. There you are. And we'll grab the relevant haircut. Did we name it? No, we didn't. So this would be hair men's. We'll just call it that. And we'll pop on over into Unity, see whether or not it pops up here. It should be right here on beneath Floofy. grind, 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 grind. Come on. Where's my floofy? And there is my... There's no men's haircut. All right. Delete it. Re-add it. Did I misname it? I bet I misnamed it. No, it says hair men's. This is hairtest.blend. So why isn't it showing up in our Unity? I forgot to bind it, that's why. It's actually showing up in the wrong spot. And the reason for that is because we need to actually map it to the bones, idiot. So what we're going to do now is we're going to go ahead and do some weight painting to make this haircut actually stick to our head properly. Normally that's just a matter of mounting it on the proper bone, but we do have a slightly more complicated setup going on here where we have to do a little bit more complicated mapping. So first things first, we're just going to go ahead and block the whole thing out as a head bone, because that is the core bone all of our stuff is going to be attached to. However, there are a couple of other bones that get involved, and this is one of them. So you can see that as we expand here, our mapping doesn't work out. So what we're going to want to do is block out this mapping properly. Turn on some X mirror and pull it out. Ooh, that's an interesting mirror job. Try that again without the... That's a really heavy strength, I guess. We can blur it back in a little bit. Something like that. Now let's go ahead and take some blur to it so that it doesn't look quite so crap. That ought to do. And we can also map it to other bones, like, say, this bone, if we want. And you can see how if we expand this bone, then the bottom edge of our sideburns doesn't work out. So we're definitely going to want to fix that. And it's easy enough. We just paint in a little bit. There, that'll work. And then we'll blur, or not, one of these things. There we are. There we go. And that ought to do well enough for now. I'll switch it back to object mode and save it. Oh, we should probably undeform. Save it. And go back into Unity. It's going to take a second for it to re-import all of our stuff. Come on. There it is, hair men's. I knew it. I forgot to map it. And that's fine. I mean, it's not fine that I forgot. It's fine that we fixed it. Drop that into our human haircuts. And we'll go ahead and add in the skinned meshed variant, which is something I created. We'll make it bright because it's bright. And that's really all we have to do, but it's wisest for us to delete our root mesh and switch it over to 000 just for the sake of maintenance. And that should do. So we'll just save this, apply, hit play, and we should get that showing up. There it is in our haircuts. Now, as you can see right away, we have some problems here. This men's haircut is not using the proper material. The hair men's material isn't set up. So that's what we're going to do right now. We'll just set up that hair men's material. Here it is. And we're going to want to use a here. That's it. And we'll use a cutout. And yeah, that's pretty much it. Now the other issue with this is that it is super, super white and shiny. The reason for that is because it's got all this specular stuff turned on. We're just going to turn all that off for the moment. I tried experimenting with this, trying to make it work out, and I just couldn't figure out a real good way to do it. This is the closest I got, and it still feels pretty bad, so I just decided to turn it all off, at least for now. But I'm certainly open to other approaches. And that... At some point, it stopped giving me the orange color when I run it. That's interesting. I don't really know when that happened, but I don't want it to stay like that. So the play mode tint is going to be orange as before. But that's okay. We were editing the core prefab, so it should have just changed. We weren't lucky enough to get it that time. There's it. So now it has the right material. But the color is pretty damn awful, and it's clear that we are not properly mapped to some bone on the head. To be honest, I'm not too concerned about that, but let's go ahead and try and find it anyway. If we take a look at the bones, that's probably the cheekbones. Yeah, these guys. So what we're going to want to do is do some weight painting and map them to the cheeks too. Yeah, I hope that it's catching the other side as well and not just this side. Let's find out. Nope. Well, whatever. We don't... It's not too much to worry about as long as they both work. All right, so that should do. Are we still set here? We're a little too set, but that's fine. I'm not too worried about it. Now the cheekbones are also an issue, but they're pretty rare and they don't move much, so I'm not going to worry about them. That should do. So let's talk about blend keys. So if you actually look here, we've got some loose hair running around and stuff like that, and we got some sideburns. Not everyone's going to have sideburns and all that stuff. We're going to go ahead and create some shape keys in order to allow us to create what we'd like to create. So first off, we're going to have one that's named bool no sideburns, and that one will either get set to 0 or 100%. It's not going to ever be halfway through. And what we're going to do there is just drag the sideburns inside the head, a fair distance inside the head. Yeah, that should be fine. If anything, this should be even further in. And that way, when our folks have their sideburns turned off, they just lose those edges, no biggie. Then we're going to also have one called short sideburns. Maybe, yeah. So when we do this, what we're going to do is we're just going to pull the sideburns up using connected proportional editing, like this, and then out, like this. And then disable the proportional editing. Okay, so we screwed that up. Look at that. There's something screwy going on with the proportional editing these days. Look at that. What the hell is this? That's weird as hell is what it is. So it looks like maybe we can only do one side at a time. No? Wow. What the hell? I don't have anything selected up there. Why? Oh, it's because I've got the mirroring turned on. Yeah, the painting mirror and the mesh edit mirror should be separate, but they're not. That's better. Okay. There we go. So that would be our short sideburns. We'll just go ahead and pull them forward a little bit. Like this, yeah. Boom. And that will give us some short sideburns. If we go back to our material and turn off white paint, you can see that there is some middle space where they are cut into the side of the head. So to prevent that, we're going to just drag them out even further here, like this, just to prevent that. Yeah, that's better. All right, and let's see. We also want to trim the back, so let's go ahead and create long, and we will just make this an unhappily long haircut. Doop, and no, I keep hitting E, G, not E. There we are, something like this. That was weird. I saw something flicker. I guess that's just an illusion. There we go. Now you've got some long hair. Can we pull these guys down? Yeah, something like that. There we go. Now we can also make a tall. And this is just going to be a taller version. Perfect. Let's not do it like that. Let's do it in sculpt mode, and we can turn on our X editing here again. Symmetry locks X. That should do. And change it to inflate, and let's just boom. Are we doing anything? I don't think we're doing anything. All right, something wrong with the brushes there. Don't know what it is. We'll just do this the old-fashioned way. There we are. Nice tall haircut. Maybe a little too tall. That's fine. Silly haircuts are the name of the game, after all. They are. And yeah, save that. And those blend shapes should automatically get imported and applied arbitrarily to anyone that wants one. I seem to have lost the panel with Twitch in it. There it is. Eva Luigi is asking me to define the nice in the nice tall haircut. It's space, man. Low gravity. Alright, so here we can see that we have a character with our haircut. And let's see whether they have any blend shapes applied. I definitely have some problems with the weight painting. Not sure exactly what we painted wrong. Deal with that later. They have short sideburns. It's probably just the short sideburns being mispainted then. There's another one, Anna. She looks like she's got the tall haircut. Maybe not. Short sideburns and tall, just a little tall. And we can adjust this if we want to be more tall. See? Now it's much more tall. It's funny that it takes a frame to recalculate, but that's fine. And that is the basic way in which I can try and make my haircuts unique. Of course, a big problem is that we end up with hair that I build, and my skills at building hair are not great. So we're going to have to think about that. Now, we're definitely seeing a lot of sideburn issues. It's probably because the faces are pretty chunky, and I might have to fix that up later. That's fine for now, though. we're not going to worry about it too much. Right now we're using the standard shader here. What we could do instead is switch over to what passes for a hair shader, and that's this guy here, where you get to pick the base color and the bright color and adjust this however you'd like. It's not ready yet though, so we're not going to use it. We're just going to use a standard shader. We'll deal with that later. But it's definitely something I'm thinking about. It's super, super bright hair. We can change the hair color to whatever we want, but you can see that as we change the hair color, it just kind of fades away and turns into a block of undifferentiated color. Well, it was kind of a block of undifferentiated color when it was white as well, but we can distinguish light gray and white much, much easier than purple and darker purple. To prevent that from happening, that's the whole reason I invented the hair shader that I'm trying to use, this guy, because it allows us to pick a much wider variety of light and dark colors. So for example, if I wanted a darker version of this haircut, I could set the dark color to something like this, but then I can also bring down the light color as much or as little as I want. Now it's got some gloss applied to it at the moment because I haven't figured out how to get the specular highlight separate from the glitter, from the reflection. In the default shader, it is different, but in Shader Forge, it's the same. Now I downloaded a new toy, a different shader system, and hopefully that will allow me to do some nice hair shaders, but I haven't even looked at it yet, so no guarantees. Eva Luigi says the super glossy looks awesome. You like it? You like it when it's got an entirely haloed sheen, because that's really not how hair looks. But that's kind of what I wanted to go over today. It's been an hour and a half, and I am not on top of my game, and I am feeling like I should probably quit now. We're going to want to fix up these sideburns a little bit again. But after that, we're done for the day. So if you got any questions or anything, let me know. Next week, we'll probably, on Saturday, we'll probably work mostly on adjusting the body morphs so that we can finally get the body morphs done, because they're the last big piece I need. And that's, the only thing I'm really worried about. And maybe it is the cheekbones. All right. Well, you can paint the cheekbones. Eva Luigi says he meant awesome as in terrible. Oh yeah, there's the headache coming in. I'm at the end of my 4 hours of flu meds, so it's all coming back. Let's take a closer look at our weird-ass character here. No real pop-through problems, just a tiny little pixel. I can't even read it. It's like light green on gray. I think his name is Jordan, says, so what's this for? I'm making a game called the Galactic Line. It's basically The Sims in space. I already got a good start on the ships, and this is me finishing up the avatars. So at some point in the next week or two, I'll probably try and combine them. I'm hoping to have them combined in February, and then you'll be able to build a ship and put crew on it. You won't be able to do anything with them yet, though. But we got an albino. Look at all this pop-through. What bone is causing that pop-through? That's not it. I closed it already. We'll do a pop-through some other time. But you're just in time to watch me leave, Jordan. I I am pretty sick today, and all of my flu meds are wearing off, so I'll come back again, same time, same channel on Saturday, and again on Wednesday, and that should do. In the meantime, we've got some really, really rough hair stuff going on here, but you get the basic idea. I think that works pretty well. Jordan likes my voice. I have been told that it's not bad. So hopefully I'll see some of you again on Saturday. And until then, I'm going to go and take some NyQuil and go to bed. See you around.